Malaysia says it can meet this year's growth target of 6 to 7.5% after its third lockdown ends. The forecast comes even as tighter restrictions are being imposed from today. Economic Affairs Minister Mustapa Mohamed says it's possible if the curbs bring the COVID-19 situation under control. Fresh data shows Malaysia's leading index surged a record 17.3% in March on year. This indicates a direction that the economy is heading in the next few months. The data follows Q1 GDP, which contracted at a slower rate of 0.5%. But the recovery could be stalled as it enters a third lockdown. Melissa Go reports.
Bakri Yusof sells banana fritters to office crowds in Kuala Lumpur suburb. Compared to a total lockdown in March last year under the first movement control order, he's thankful. At least under the MCO 3.0, he can still trade.
Kita dapat pagi, besok habis. Macam itulah sekarang. Kalau lockdown, habislah kita.
Terima kasih. And for many street peddlers in Malaysia, eking out a living has just gotten a lot more harder, with many Malaysians now told to work from home.
Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin, who refused to reinstate a full lockdown, said he needed to protect some 2.8 million lower-income earners that work in the informal sector. Instead of going back to a full lockdown, the government has mandated all shops, including gas stations, malls, restaurants and eateries to close by 8 p.m. Given that dining in is already prohibited, restaurant owners say cutting operating hours will further hurt business.
It will be a problem is that the people who are out there working, they can't get their food within a certain hours. So that's unfortunate. Our hands are tied. Whatever cash flows we had is over, finished.
Apart from retail, food, hospitality and tourism sectors are among the hardest hit. Meanwhile, the small and medium-scale enterprises that account for 40% of the economy expects half of the 1.3 million SMEs to shut if MCO 3.0 is prolonged.
During MCO 1, they still got cash on hand. So they are able to sustain for 3 months, even until today. But I think majority of SME, I think more than 40 or 50% SME still breathing. They are already in the red. So because they already used up all the cash, pay all the expenditure, salary and the rental. So they got no money to pay their bank loan.
Still, Finance Minister Zafar Aziz is optimistic that the economy can achieve a targeted growth of between 6 and 7.5% this year. Economists, however, are less sanguine.
COVID doesn't give you any chance for optimism, unfortunately. The longer they delay, this bringing down the curve of deaths as well as the infections, I think the longer that happens, it's going to make the chance of Tunku Zafrul's forecast more and more challenging.
The impact will be less severe compared to the nationwide lockdown under MCO 1.0 in March to May last year. However, the economic losses will certainly be greater than MCO 2.0, not just due to the more restricted movements and social gatherings as well as tighter SOPs for economic activities, but also heightened consumer fears and investors' risk aversion to the rising COVID-19 infection rates.
Private consumption that accounts for 60% of the GDP, he said, will be affected as households cut back on spending.
Now, essentially, the tighter the lockdown, the more costly it is to the economy. Now, economists say the government must now tighten enforcement and ramp up vaccination, including for the economic frontliners, because it's only by containing the pandemic can the government safely open the economy and pave the way for sustainable economic recovery. Melissa Go, CNA, Kuala Lumpur.